Welcome to this Perceptive Readers Podcast. Hi, I'm James Lynch. Millennials, please never forget this. Even though what I'm about to say applies to all, I want to reference something that I heard the other day, or really I read the other day, that will help you to appreciate why I started off saying, Millennials, please never forget this. Hi, I'm James Lynch and welcome to this Park Books Update moment. The other day I read something that was on social media, and I'm sure most of you probably saw it by now as well, where it stated, or maybe it was just, singling out a certain age group, I don't know, but it still said, aren't you glad you were born before this age or the age of the internet or the technology age or what have you? Even though, as you know, technology has been around and even the internet has been around a long time, even back in the 50s or some form of it. And see, we're not just talking about Morse code, because see, that could even be considered internet in a way, but telephones and things of that nature. But as far as what would basically turn into this extravagant technological age that we have, actually, really was used by the military way back in those days, you see. Now, that's just a side thought. But in reference to this social media post that was stating, aren't you glad you were born before, this magnificent age that we're in now where, the software and the telegrams and the streaming, the gaming, the knowledge, it's all in abundance on a level that once again, you could literally, if you stay focused, you could learn something from the internet and in your research, just in one day, what would have taken other people even years, you see, to actually gather such knowledge and to comprehend it and to actually set it aside and put it in a notebook or what have you so that you can always reference it. That's another side thought. But okay, with all that background information, what is it that the millennials should never forget? Even though things move very fast in this age and on the internet, high speed, 5G, and then 6G they're even talking about. And as I've said before, make sure whatever is implemented, it has to be safe. It has to be proven safe. The safeguards, the shielding and things of that nature. But that's for another podcast. But again, you can see when we talk about speeds and how fast we can gather knowledge and upload and download and things of that nature. Sometimes people may forget that there is still such a thing as time and patience. And everything wasn't meant to go at 100 millionth of a second, you see, or even 1 second, or even 1 hour, you see. There are some things that were meant to take time. Now, with that thought, I want to share something with you even further to show you how important it is to never forget that everything doesn't happen instantly. And it comes from a good book passage. I referenced this passage before in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. So look at this as a Sunday thought because it is a Sunday. But I want to share something with you from Ecclesiastes chapter 3. I'm going to end up reading about 8 verses straight. Then I'm going to skip a couple of verses and conclude with my thought from these last 2 verses, something just for you to think about. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1, it states that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Now let's skip to verse 11 and verse 12. It states, He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. And notice this nice scripture. It says, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. Isn't that wonderful? To do good, nothing better for people, and to be happy and to do good while they live. You see, when it was saying that it's a time to, it was in the song, many years ago, these passages, some of them. And here it is. It's not saying that just because it says it's a time to be born, the time to die. Now those things, happen. But then it started talking about weeping, laughing, to kill, to live. You see, the time to embrace. In other words, it's not saying that every single one of these things you have to set aside time and say, this is what we're going to do because this is fate, F-A-T-E, that we have to do this. No, what it's saying is during the course of your lifetime, you will experience all of these things and you will need what? In order to solve them, deal with them, you see, work out something, that a system way of doing things. All of these things would what? They would take time. And see, and who is the example of that? The greatest example of all. It mentions God. See, remember, God can fix every single thing in the snap of his fingers, can he not? Even faster than what the internet can move. But he doesn't. Why? Because he has given us time to experience these things. Also, time as we go through these different things in our life to really learn to appreciate just how good he is, just how magnificent he is, just how patient he is to help us to even get the point. Here's another side note, because you've heard me say this, and I've said enough for you to already be able to figure out why I said it, but I know some of you still don't get it. And one day I may just come straight out and say it in another way, but that's not today. But the point is, I've always said that you really don't have to have good and evil to appreciate the good immensely. You don't have to have evil. But I know, once again, some people disagree with this. Well, still, take this verse to heart that I already read, where remember in verse 11, it says, He has made everything beautiful in his time. Talking about God. And he said, He has also set eternity in the human heart. Talking about us. See, he put eternity or living forever in our heart. Why? Because he didn't mean for us, when he made us, to ever die in the first place. And so that we could live forever with him. So that's why he even put the desire in us, even the capabilities to enjoy life forever and continue to learn forever. And so notice what he said, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. This is another verse that helps us to appreciate, we'll never be bored. You see, we'll never know everything and figure everything out about this magnificent God. So that's all I say sometimes. We just focus on the love. Just focus on how it make you feel. And as he bring out all these other magnificent things and or with our hearts, minds, ways of doing other things. And I mean, like I said, we can't even fathom. So that's why I'm not going to even go into it. But, sometimes I make the expression, people who are very creative, they're sometimes doing a creation, whether it's music, art, and writing. If you don't feel like somehow the very Spirit of God touches you in such a way where it's like, woo, I just got a glimpse of it. See, but again, that's for another podcast. So let me read one more verse though, where it says, and I've already mentioned it, that from what God is saying, that each of them, us, may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Because this was in verse 13. Remember what was said in verse 12, where he said, I know that there is nothing better, the writer here, Solomon, for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. See, that goes to show you right there. That's the important thing in today's world. And no matter what there is a time for, like, we know people get happy when a life comes into the world. But then what happens when someone dies? Then all the people who know that person, who are around them or what have you, what? They try to comfort and console the person. They don't even try to rush the person through the grieving process. Why? Because it takes time. Same thing about when you're enjoying happiness and stuff in life. You might set aside a nice little shindig over here or what have you. You know what? You're savoring every moment. Heard a person talk just the other day, something that he loves to do, in the spring and summertime. And boy, the way that he just described what he does out in his backyard from on the grill and, something stronger than lemonade, things of that nature. Oh my goodness, if that didn't sound wonderful. See, savoring those times and things of that nature. So this is just letting you know again that everything wasn't meant to be always just instant, there's a time for everything. And on top of that, we want to always be aware that it was one other verse I wanted to point out in closing. And that time every thank you for waiting for that. And I just wanted to state that it did say in verse 17, though, be aware of this, of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says, I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. So what is this still saying to you? Well, I would say, reference right back to verse 12, where it says, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good. See, doing your best to do good to others, being patient with others, mourning with others at times, a friend, a family, or what have you. Do you really think it would be terrifying to hear in verse 17 where it says, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed? No. You won't be terrified. And on top of that, even with the mistakes that may have, been made, with not appreciating how there is a time for everything and to give people the needed time to deal with this or that or enjoy this or that, there is still that ransom sacrifice that is talked about in the Greek scriptures or the New Testament, or the four Gospels that help persons to appreciate further. So I just wanted to share this with you. And I know I referenced the millennials, even though it applies to all, Some things you have to do quickly. And then there are some things that, no, you just have to allow for that time for whatever you're going through, someone you know is going through, without even, trying to curtail it. And I use the example of even people who are grieving or hurt in some way or what have you. That's why I always say again, just do the best you can and try to encourage and do good where you can. You see, that is always the best way to handle things, you see, to resolve it. But anyway, thank you for sharing this Sunday thought with me in this Park Books Update moment. And remember, keep doing the best you can. Remember again to you can live forever. You know how I like to say it's not it's not made up or anything. It's just a fact. And I don't know how many ways I can keep saying it. It's just a fact. It's not a doubt in my mind. But the whole thing is the people who will be living forever, I guarantee you, every single one of those persons will appreciate there's a time for everything. And that is nothing better than to be happy and to do good to others. Thank you for being here on this Pop Books Update moment. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. You have just listened to the Perceptive Readers Podcast. Remember, until next time, if you read something that encourages you to improve or enhance your life for the better, it becomes your reality.